Hi guys, welcome back. Today I have another book video for you. I'm going to do my October wrap-up. I don't think I've ever done a monthly wrap-up video before. Normally I like to do singular book reviews, but I read a lot of books this month and I wanted to talk about pretty much all the books I wanted to read this month. So instead of doing 9 single videos, I decided to just put it all in one. I would love to know if you all like this version better. I feel like a lot of booktubers do wrap-ups like this instead of doing the single book reviews. I personally like the single book reviews, but I would love to know what you think. Prefer this way or that way? But yes, I read, let me not drop these. I read 9 books in October. I had a really good reading month. I would say on average I read 2 books a week, which would make sense for October just with 1 extra. And I read a lot of good books. I read 1 really bad one and the rest of them were actually very good. So I'm going to talk to you about them today. I dressed very studious for you today with my sweater vest and my headband and my watch because I'm a very smart person. I read. I'm so smart. I also did light my candles again. If you saw my last video, you would know that I'm kind of loving the candles in the background. I'm still a little terrified that something's gonna catch on fire, but it didn't last time, so let's pray it doesn't do it this time either. I knew that was gonna happen. I'm gonna have to separate these piles. One moment. Without further ado, let's get right on in to our October reading wrap-up. The first book I read in October was It's Different This Time by Joss Richard. I believe this is this author's, wait, did I do a full review on this book? I think I did. I did, okay. I was getting a little bit of deja vu talking about this, so I actually have a video dedicated to this book's review, which you can of course go watch. I will tell you again, just so you know, but I'll also have that video linked down below in case you want to watch, I guess, more an extensive review. But this is this author's debut novel. I absolutely loved it. This is about a couple who lived together in New York for a period of time in this really beautiful brownstone townhouse. We know that something happened between them, and our female main character June moved to LA. She was a Broadway actress and she moved to LA to start doing movie and TV acting. It's not really going great for her. Her hit TV show got canceled and she gets a call saying that she needs to come back to New York because she has been gifted something in a will. She gets to New York and the owner of the townhouse has actually gifted her and Adam, who is our male main character, the townhouse. He left it to them in his will, and they have to live in the townhouse together for 30 days before it's actually in their name, and so we have a little bit of forced proximity going on. It was just a really well written story. I loved the romance. I loved the pacing of it. You will see that in a couple of these books this month that I was having trouble with pacing of certain stories, but I thought the pacing this was perfect. It wasn't too insta-lovey because we got the buildup of their relationship in the flashback chapters, and then we could see the relationship progressing as they're staying in this townhouse together, and it was just a really good book. I can't wait to see what else this author writes. Also, if you're someone that doesn't like to read seasonal books after the fact, I still think you could read this one in November and still enjoy it. It wasn't too Halloween-y or too fallish. If you're just wanting a cute semi-autumnal romance book, definitely check this one out because I absolutely loved it. The next book I read was Cream Puff Murder by Joanne Fluke. This is number 11 or 12 in the Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder series, which is one of my favorite mystery series, if not my top favorite mystery books of all time. They are very cozy, very formulaic mysteries, but I love them. I enjoy a mystery book, but I am not a huge mystery reader. I get very freaked out with mystery books. I think I have an overactive imagination and I just get way too scared, but these are not scary. These are very cozy. Our main character Hannah is a baker, and so there are actually recipes in this book. Whatever she's baking in the story, the author will give you recipes. So like this one is for Hannah's very best cream puffs, so it actually has the full recipe. Once you start reading them, you'll realize how formulaic they are. Like the stories follow the exact same pattern, and I don't care. I love them. There's something so comforting about that because I know what I'm going to get from this book and I know it's going to be a good time. The side characters are so lovable. The little town that they live in is hilarious. Everybody is all up in each other's business. It is just my favorite series. Definitely don't start in the middle of it. Even though the mysteries are wrapped up in one, you need the context of the story and of the side characters and all their relationships to fully grasp the, I guess, nostalgia and like little side plots of each book. So definitely don't start in the middle. Start with the first one and work your way up, and they're really cute. The next book I read was Reese Witherspoon's new book that she wrote with Harlan Coben. This is called Gone Before Goodbye. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. I read this book in like 5 hours. I was at the bookstore one day and it had just come in, like it released on a Tuesday, and I read it on that Tuesday and just read the whole book while I was at the bookstore. I could not put this book down. It was so good. This is a mystery book, and it wasn't too gruesome or too scary. It was very suspenseful, but it wasn't like I'm gonna be scared to go to bed at night kind of suspenseful. It was just a really, really good mystery. It's a medical mystery. So our main character, what's her name? Maggie. Maggie is a world-renowned plastic surgeon who has served in the army. She was a trauma surgeon in the army, and we know that something has happened that has been really detrimental to her life, and something else happened and she has lost her medical license to practice in the US. And so she's kind of coming to terms with that. She doesn't really know what to do with her life, and she gets an opportunity to become a concierge surgeon for this like multi-millionaire billionaire man, and he lives in like Russia or something, and so she can go do it. I don't really know how that works with licenses. She can tell that the longer she gets into this, the sketchier the situation is, and there are all these little pieces that connect to things in her past, and it was such a good book. It also gave me a little bit of that Grey's Anatomy surgeon vibes, which I love, and I really, really enjoyed it. Also, if you are an audiobook listener, the audiobook is read by Reese Witherspoon and Chris Pine. I think if you were an audiobook person, you would really like that one because obviously they both have great voices. The next book I read was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Madonna. I have mixed feelings about this book. So the book itself was very cozy and it had perfect Halloween vibes. Our main character, what's her name? I'm not gonna say that every time. Our main character, Sarah, is a witch who has lost her powers. Her caretaker and basically like the person that she loves most in the world is her aunt, and her aunt dies, and Sarah decides to cast a spell to bring her back from the dead, and it works, but in the process she loses most of her power. She still has a little bit left, but Sarah was this prodigy witch who had this insane amount of power, who understood spells like very intrinsically, and supposed to be like this great powerful witch. And because she lost most of her magic, she lost her place in the school that she was going to learn more about her magic and to strengthen her magic, and so her life has kind of become in shambles. She is a very, very depressed person, and I think that's the reason why I didn't love this book. Well, there were two reasons. First off, it was a very sad book. Like, Sarah is going through a lot in this story, and you see that happening throughout the book, like trying to come to terms with her past, with losing her magic. She is very obsessed with getting her magic back, and they find a way to get it back, but there's something that happens in the end that just kind of ruined the story for me. I don't know. Alright, I'm gonna say what happens, so I'm gonna put a timestamp for you to skip to the end. If you haven't read this book and you want to skip to this time so you won't get any spoilers, go away. Go, go, go. I'm giving you a warning, spoiling this book. So in the end of the book, Sarah gets her magic back and she's able to kind of defeat this evil warlock, but in defeating him, she loses her powers again, and it just kind of felt anticlimactic. Like, this entire book, she is building up to getting her powers back, and I think the message of the story was supposed to be that she didn't need her powers to be a good person. She didn't need to have her entire self-worth based in her powers, but it was just sad because the entire book, she like worked so hard to get her powers back, and she is this like all-powerful witch who's gonna like change the course of witchery and all this stuff, and then she loses her powers again, and I was just like, that was such a sad ending, and I just couldn't get past it because the entire book she like tries to come to terms with being okay without her powers, and I kind of feel like she gets there before she gets them back. Like, she kind of realizes that she'll be okay either way, and then she gets them back and everything's amazing, and she defeats the warlock, and then she loses her powers again. I was like, that is so depressing, and I get why the author did it. Like, it was supposed to send a message and it's supposed to be an inspirational story, but I was just kind of like, oh, she lost her powers again? That's sad. I would still recommend reading it. I think it was a very well-written book. The descriptions of everything, the end that she runs, I don't know if I mentioned that, but she runs an inn with her aunt, and it is very quirky and very whimsical, and all these funny things keep happening. I enjoyed the romance in this book a lot. All the side characters in the book are precious, and there are like other little side romances that happen, and I wanted the ending to be different, and I wanted the rest of the story to be a little bit more uplifting because it was so sad. So yes, still think you should read this if that sounds interesting to you. I feel like I'm not giving it a very good review. I just didn't personally enjoy it, but if you like books with stronger messages and like reasons behind the plot, then you would enjoy this. Or if you're just someone who likes a cozy fantasy, I also think you would still enjoy this one. So yes, Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. Alright, the next book I read was Falling Like Leaves by Misty Wilson. This is a Bramble Falls novel. I'm guessing we're going to get more in this series. This is a young adult romance book, and honestly I think it being young adult was the only reason why I didn't love it more than I did. I didn't rate this one on Goodreads because I really could not decide what I wanted to rate it, because it didn't fully feel like a 4-star to me, but it didn't feel like a 3-star, so maybe it's a true 3.5 star. This book is about our main character Ellis. Y'all, I cannot remember the main character's names for the life of me. This book is about our main character Ellis. She is in high school and she finds out one day that her mother and her father are separating. Her mom is moving to Bramble Falls, where she grew up in Connecticut. It's a very small town. They live in Manhattan, and Ellis has to go live in the small town with her mother for her senior year of high school, and she's very upset about it. She is staying with her aunt and cousin, who her cousin is around her age, and they're really good friends, and so they kind of help her get out of her shell a little bit and enjoy living in the town. She starts school and she meets a boy. There is a guy that she used to be friends with when she would come visit Bramble Falls to come visit her family, and they kind of drifted off a little bit and they start to rekindle their spark. The pacing of this book was very fast. The book starts, we're at a party, her parents are separating, we're in the town, she's starting school, like all within the first fourth of the book, and it was kind of giving me whiplash a little bit, but I liked it because I felt like I had just read The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping before, and it took me a while to get through that book, and so I felt like I was flying through this one because the pacing was so fast, which I enjoyed. I felt like it was a tiny bit insta-lovey with the romance. That's really the only reason why it didn't end up being a 4 stars to me, because everything else I really enjoyed. I love the setting of the book. It was very autumnal. It's a perfect fall book. Ellis's aunt, who they're staying with in the town, is actually the mayor of the town, and she's in charge of putting on the Falling Leaves Festival, and so they're always doing these like fall Halloween activities, and it just seems like the most perfect town to spend fall in, and so that part of the book I really enjoyed. I thought the relationships between the characters were really nice. It was truly just that pacing where I felt like things were happening so quickly. Alright. Then I read A Philosophy of Thieves by Fran Wilde. Y'all, no. Unfortunately, this was a no for me. I gave this book 2 stars, which I don't do very often, and I was just like, no. I did not enjoy this book, and I'm so sorry to Fran Wilde. I'm sure you are a great author. This one's just not for me. I think I read this in my haul video where I got this one, but it says that it blends fantastic glamour with gritty fantasy in this techno thriller heist about capitalism and climate on a futuristic Earth. And I was like, huh. That doesn't seem like a book that I would read, but for some reason I was just very intrigued by it and I really wanted to read it, and yeah, no. The biggest issue I had with this book was that because it was dystopian, there were all of these things that were so different from like today's society. And normally in dystopian books, they do a good amount of world building at the beginning so you can understand the world. There was zero world building in this book, to the point where I was just confused the entire time. I said in my Goodreads review, I had no idea what was happening for 80% of this book because I really didn't. That's how confused I was, because they would say all of these terms and these words and they wouldn't explain them, and you kind of just had to figure them out with context clues, and it was making my brain hurt. I could not understand this book, and this book actually has great reviews on Goodreads, so I'm willing to admit that maybe this was a me problem and that I just couldn't understand this book. But I personally think that if this book had just set out even just a couple of paragraphs at the beginning of the book and explained, first of all, what happened to the world, second of all, how they rebuilt it and how the current world works, I think I would have enjoyed it so much more, because the plot was interesting, but I couldn't follow the plot because I was just confused about the parts of the world. This isn't really a spoiler, but this honestly might help you if you decide you want to read this book. They keep talking about these safes in the book, and like, I'm thinking a safe as what you store your valuables in, and that's what they're talking about. However, in this world, safes, instead of being like a big, you know, box with a code and a lock and it turns and it's flame retardant and all that stuff, safes are people in this world, and they have found a way to take out vital organs and put these like pockets in their body, and so your safe is a person. And I was just like, what? And the way that they would talk about the stuff that they were putting in the safe seemed like it would be way too big to put like where your appendix is. That's what one of the options that they gave. Like your appendix is what, like that big? And they were talking about putting multiple test tubes of things in one of the safe pockets. And I was like, how are multiple test tubes gonna fit inside of where your appendix was supposed to be? So confusing. And you wanted your safe to be a family member, so it would have loyalty. Loyalty was a big thing in this book because people were always trying to like overtake other people, and our main character was working on some sort of drug that would make your safe more loyal to you. And I was just like, I don't understand. I'm so confused. And there were all of these other aspects of the world. Like the world was very complicated, and this author obviously put a lot of thought into how this world worked. And there were other things that I can't even explain to you, but the safe one got me because I was just like logically, does that make sense? And I'm sure it does. Like I'm sure in her mind it does, and I'm sure to the people who enjoy this book it did, but to me it did not. So unfortunately, I really did not like this book, and it almost put me in a little bit of a slump, but I got out of it pretty quickly because the rest of the books that I read this month were really good. But I am willing to admit that it could have just been a me problem because this book has good reviews. If you think this concept sounds interesting to you, I say give it a go. I just personally was very, very confused. All right, we are down to our last 3 books. This book is Uncharmed by Lucy Jane Wood. This was such a cute book. This was our bookstore's book club book of October, and we had a great discussion about it. It was such a cute book. So this book follows our main character Annie, and she is the epitome of a perfectionist type A personality. She has a very rigorous schedule to everything that she does while still being extremely caring and people pleasing. That's another thing. Very, very much a people pleaser. And so she has kind of gotten herself into a situation where she is a little bit unhappy. She has what she thinks are great friends. She owns a bakery. She has good people that work with her at the bakery. She's involved in this like club situation, and she has like all the boxes ticked, but inside she has a lot of self-doubt. She has a lot of those perfectionist tendencies where she needs everything to be perfect at all times, and she needs everyone around her to be perfectly happy and to like her and kind of a little bit be obsessed with her. And she's kind of running herself into the ground to maintain all of this. She gets a call from her coven and says that there is a teenage witch who is an orphan, and she has come into powers we didn't know about her, and she needs a mentor to help her kind of show the ropes of being a witch, to strengthen her powers, to understand how to use them. And so they tell Annie that she has to be the mentor. Maeve is the teenager's name, and Maeve has zero control over her powers, and there's a situation that happens at the school and she like blows up, and they try to keep their magic hidden from humans. Because of that, the coven sends Annie and Maeve to this cottage out in the woods so they can explore their magic in solitude. Their personalities definitely clash with each other. They don't really know how to work with each other, and finally they start to have this mutual understanding that they want to help, and it's a very, very sweet relationship between Annie and Maeve, and the way that they grow together and how they help each other is so sweet. Annie is obsessed with the color pink, and so there were so many like pink touches in this book, which I absolutely loved. It was a very picturesque, very whimsical read, and it was so perfect to read right before Halloween. The author was great in making you feel what Annie was feeling. My emotions were getting heightened because hers were, and it just made me feel very connected to the story, and I loved it. All right, y'all, almost there. 2 more. The next book I read was If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. Absolutely loved this book so much. This one and It's Different This Time were definitely my two favorite romances of the month. This book follows Cliff and Michelle, and we actually get both of their POVs in this book, which I absolutely loved. So Michelle is a top advertising executive in Seattle, and unfortunately her mother passes away, and her mother had started this inn in this small town in, is it Maine or Vermont? Somewhere, yeah, in Vermont. And eventually her sister is going to take over the inn, but she needs someone to run it in the meantime. And so Michelle has actually just gone through a really bad divorce, and so she takes leave of her job in Seattle and moves to Vermont to start running the inn. Michelle was such a funny female main character. It's very Grumpy Sunshine, but Michelle is the grumpy one, and I thought that was just very refreshing because I feel like I'm always reading Grumpy Sunshine books, which are the opposite. Like the guy is always the grumpy one, but Michelle was definitely the grumpy one in this book, and I really enjoyed it. She has trouble dealing with people, and she's probably the last person you would think that would take over a small town inn like this. Like, she has trouble talking to the customers. She is very blunt in all of her responses. She's not a frivolous person in her personality at all, and she tries to learn how to be a little more like that because that's what people who come to the inn expect. They want to talk to you, they want to sit with you over breakfast eating biscuits and cinnamon rolls, and they want you to tell them about the town. And Michelle is struggling bad, and so she enlists the help of her next door neighbor Cliff, who is our male main character. Cliff is a single dad. He and his wife got divorced. His wife moved to New York City, and so he has sole custody of his kids. There is a high schooler and an elementary schooler, and they are so cute. Kids in stories can be a little iffy for me, but I enjoyed the kids in this book so much. I feel like they really added to the story, and the relationship with Cliff and his kids was so sweet. You see Cliff and Michelle work through their own demons on their own, but also together, and you see their relationship progress. Again, the town is very picturesque. It was definitely giving Gilmore Girls vibes. This book is actually set in the 90s, so you have all of that nostalgia. Sometimes I would forget that it was set in the 90s, and they would say stuff like, I gotta get my Walkman, or I gotta go pick up a VHS from the movie store, and I was like, oh yeah, this is actually set in the 90s. I think there was a good balance of it obviously being set in a small town with those side characters, but the side characters weren't as prevalent in the story, and I actually really enjoyed that. I just think the author knew how to balance things in this book really well, and again, I'm really excited to see what else she comes up with. I really hope she writes a Christmas book because I can totally see her doing a great Christmas romance, and this is one that I think you all need to read. It is so good. All right, last but not least, stay with me, we're almost there, is Spellcaster by Jamin Eve. I ate this book up. Oh my gosh. When I first ordered this book for the store, I was obsessed with the sprayed edges. This book is set at a magical college, and it has an illustration of the college on the sprayed edges and with really pretty gold on the sides, and I picked it up and I read the back and I was like, I think I would like that. I'm not really sure. I decided I wasn't gonna buy it, and then we had one copy left, and I saw where you couldn't get the sprayed edges anymore, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy it. I love sprayed edges. I want to have this book even if I don't know if I'm gonna love it or not. And so I didn't go into this book with high expectations just because from the back I wasn't sure if I was gonna love it. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it so much. The next book in this series is going to be one of my most highly anticipated releases for next year. I need that book immediately. Like, I don't know if I can get an arc of that book, but if I can, I need it like now because I need to know what happens with this book. The cliffhanger at the end was insane. The main character of this book's name is Paisley, which really threw me off because I don't feel like she's a Paisley at all, but I will forgive the author for that. She is the youngest of 5 siblings who were all magical witches and warlocks, and each person in this book, their magic manifests in a different way. And so her 2 older sisters who are twins are both nature sprites, and so they have animal familiars. Her 2 brothers, one is a water elemental and one is a fire elemental. The magic in this book is very much has to do with the elements, and so water, nature, fire, air is one. Or you can be what is known as a spellcaster, and that's where you have affinities for all the different magics. There's also a magic called necromancy, which is its own separate thing, which has to do with energy of the dead. They didn't explore that a ton in this book, which I think is gonna be a little bit more explored in the second book, but it takes place at the college. Her dad is a professor at the college, and there's something in her mom's past that we learn that has made her give up her use of her magic. And so her mom's now does accounting for her witch's coven, and she doesn't use her magic anymore. She really loves her plants, and she will do alchemy spells, which you don't really use magic for. Those are more just like recipes for spells. That comes into play later in the story, but there is this guy named Logan who transfers to the school the same year that Paisley starts. He is in his 3rd year, Paisley's in her 1st year, and there's a lot of bad blood between the two families, and Logan's dad has a blood oath against Paisley's dad, and so everyone is terrified of Logan. Everyone thinks that Logan's gonna hurt Paisley. No, no. No, no. I can actually tell you this because it opens up with this in the prologue. The prologue takes place in the middle of the story, and then you flash back to the beginning and kind of work your way up to the prologue, and we get a who hurt you scene in the prologue, and I was like, I'm getting a who hurt you scene 2 pages in? Yes, please. And to see Logan and Paisley kind of reminisce, because they were friends when they were little and something happened. I feel like I can't explain this without spoiling it. I'm not going to spoil this because I want you to read this, and it was just so good. But there are things that happened with them when they were children that comes into play, and there are these magical monsters that are being released that they have to fight against, and oh my gosh, it's just so good. It was so well written. I read it in like 2 nights. I could not put it down. I need you all to read this. It is so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I gave it like a 4.5, but the more I think about it, it might have been a 5-star. Like, it might have given me that actual 5-star feeling, because oh my gosh, I am so excited for the next book. I need it immediately, like immediately give me the next book. So please read this. If you are a fantasy lover, you would love this. All right, and that's all the books that I read in October. Again, please let me know if you liked this better than my one-off reviews. I think it was better for this month because I had a lot of books that I wanted to talk about. Some of my more mediocre reading months, I think it'd be better to do single videos on the books that I actually feel like I want to talk about, but I really wanted to talk about all of these this month, so I've enjoyed doing it all together. My October reading wrap up. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!